Why does a county development authority need its own multi-million-dollar private jet? That was the question that sparked a Channel 2 Action News investigation. Channel 2 consumer investigator Justin Gray is here with us now. And Justin, your team actually spotted this plane while digging through some open records requests.
And Karen, the plane is owned by the Decide DeKalb Development Authority. We checked with the FAA. It's registered to them too. That's led us to looking into why. And that led us to looking into the multi-million-dollar tax incentives and tax breaks development authorities offer to lure companies to their communities. What we found is that DeKalb County Development Authority is not tracking if companies actually create the jobs they pledge to get those tax breaks.
That's a $9.5 million private jet on the runway at DeKalb Peachtree Airport. And the cost of the luxury plane comes out of the pocket of DeKalb County taxpayers. Check the tail number. You see it's registered to the Development Authority of DeKalb County. Check state records, you see it listed as an asset of the Development Authority of DeKalb County. But the plane is actually used by a company called Acuity Brands, a lighting company. The Development Authority bought the plane from Acuity in 2014 and leases it back to them as part of a multi-million-dollar tax incentive package used to convince Acuity to expand a DeKalb County facility.
But do the citizens of DeKalb County need to pay for that plane? I think that's a question I'd like to see a public discussion about.
Mary Margaret Oliver represents DeKalb County in the State House and has been pushing for more transparency for Development Authority deals.
It's symptomatic that developer thinks that he can have an entitlement or certainly can receive a free plane that somebody else is going to buy.
There are now more than 1,300 development authorities in Georgia, each with an unelected board, but the power to offer millions of dollars in tax breaks to companies.
And there's very little oversight and very little transparency. When is a deal good for the taxpayer?
The Decide DeKalb Development Authority would only tell us about the plane deal, quote, "There is no one on Decide DeKalb's staff or board today that was around during the time of this project that can speak about the details or climate in which decisions were made." But DeKalb County isn't the only development authority to get into the private jet business. DeKalb County has a similar plane deal with Georgia entertainment mogul Tyler Perry, granting a $1.8 million tax break and refinancing Perry's $35 million jet to lure it to Cobb County's McCollum Field.
We saw that as an opportunity to attract, other private jets, particularly for those in the movie and entertainment.
Nelson Jeter heads up the Cobb County Development Authority and says besides luring other planes, the jet has provided 10 high-paying jobs. He considers it a win for the county.
We know Tyler Perry lives here. We know he flies here to Georgia. Why does he need incentives to house his plane here?
I mean, any company that's having to compete in this global market need to have a competitive advantage.
But the question is, how much should taxpayers subsidize that advantage? In 2022, the state legislature created a bipartisan study committee to look into that. But after a spring 2023 hearing, recommendations to tighten oversight on development authorities didn't get passed out of the Gold Dome. Nelson Jeter says that competing states like North Carolina, Florida, and Texas are offering similar deals, and Georgia has to keep up.
I think probably 75 to 80% would have gone elsewhere because they could get our deal or a better deal somewhere else.
So what about Acuity Brands and that jet deal? In 2014, they pledged to create 250 jobs and invest more than $34 million into DeKalb County. We asked the Decide DeKalb Development Authority if that's happened, but they told us they don't track that data, that, quote, "No annual reporting is required for projects that do not contain multifamily housing."
When do we get our money back if they don't carry out their obligations of the deal?
Now, because of our questions, DeKalb asked Acuity if they fulfilled the terms of their agreement. A letter Acuity sent dated last week says they did. Acuity told me late today in a statement that, quote, taxpayers have not paid for the purchase or operation of the company airplane and that they have created hundreds of jobs in DeKalb. But again, Decide DeKalb tells us they don't track these things. Now, in Cobb County, it's a different story. The Cobb Development Authority requires companies to file annual reports showing they are meeting the job growth and investment numbers, or they could have their bond agreements pulled. Same in Fulton, where they tell us they require quarterly reports. Linda?
Justin, thank you.